following may be based on fact, fiction, science, or otherwise. We present that which is researched and that which is believed to be accurate and true. Professor Truth, guests, and associates may not agree on all viewpoints expressed, implied, or misunderstood by the reader or listener from the content communicated in any format. The information presented is for educational and philosophical purposes only, based solely on the spiritual precepts of the King James Bible as elucidated by the original language word studies and the anointing of the Holy Spirit of Jesus Christ, Father God in the flesh. Isaiah 9:6. The SCET Chronicles will go where no one has gone before. Due to the extreme nature of the content presented, it is important to pray before watching or listening to this series as we deal with the supernatural reality and warfare that comes against mankind. As with all of the shows which Professor Truth produces, the SCET Chronicles' purpose is to expose the reality of the nefarious war ongoing for the born-from-above souls of our Creator, Jesus Christ. We really do live in a matrix designed to blind the minds to the spiritual battle raging with diversions and distractions. Seek God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and have no other gods before Him. Pray the blood of Jesus Christ as your covering and the Holy Spirit as your guide. Finally, put on the full armor of God as described in Ephesians chapter 6. And by the blood of Jesus Christ, we pray. So be it.
Okay.
Doing pretty good.
All right. Well, you told me before the show that you may be sending me some classified info. What's up with that? Where's that coming from?
Well, from a friend of mine, I can't mention his name, from the Department of Defense, where we had some pretty intense phone calls with different people. When I send them to you, his questions will be edited out. You won't be able to hear them. You'll be able to hear us answering questions. But one of them was with somebody that was in the Illuminati, pretty high up, real high up, as a matter of fact, who's no longer in it. We had a conversation, and there's probably, I would say 200 hours probably of conversations total of different people that we talked to. Some were in government positions and stuff, and we decided we were going to release some of it with some of it edited, and we just wanted to know. Nobody else has it, so we just wanted to know if you wanted to put them on your website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly will. Yeah. Now these audio tapes. They're conversations from telephone. Mm-hmm. Okay.
They're pretty deep. So that's, I don't want to say a whole lot because I don't know what has to be edited out yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, Greg, we got this question come in from somewhere in the USA. It says, why is the Antarctic secured by the U.S. military, and what are they hiding or protecting? Do they have something in the Antarctic that you know of?
Yeah, when, of course, there was rumors flew around in the underground bases about the Antarctic, and they brought different things in there that you couldn't make heads or tails out of, but it had to do with the Nazis when they were there. The government, the United States government after World War II ran to the Antarctic and seized all of it, and I really am not educated enough to tell you exactly what they found under there. I know that they did find some UFO crafts there that were helping the Nazis. Other than that, I don't know. I know that there's a lot of conspiracies and things going on about the Antarctic, but as far as me personally seeing, I had access to a lot of things, but there were so many things that you couldn't access it all, if you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
It just, a lot of stuff we didn't even want to know about. And so, but the Antarctic, there is a lot of alien technology.
Is this accelerating? Is there ever going to be sort of like an alien invasion to say stop worldwide conflict as these ISIS attacks start to escalate and countries want to strike back? Are the aliens going to interfere with that?
Well, first let me say where I left off at. I don't buy the fact that they didn't know that ISIS wasn't going to strike. Just like I don't buy the fact that they didn't know that 9/11 was going to happen, and I try to be sensitive about it for the people that died there. But you can't tell me that a bunch of guys with cell phones in the desert have the espionage technology to coordinate such a strike. Number one, I just don't buy it. There was even talk last night, chatter, that was told to me that ISIS may have a nuclear mine, not a nuclear delivery system, but a nuclear mine there. And I can only point to one country, and we all know who that is, that would have given them the nuclear weapons-grade material. And with that said, we're being set up for something really big with the One World Order. They've already imposed martial law over there. So with the alien agenda, if you put that in there too, they may come out and falsely stop all this, right? Because we're really, right now, we're at the brink of World War III, and I'm just going to say it like it is. We're at the brink of World War III, and that attack right there was the worst attack on France since 1944 when Hitler was in. Mm-hmm. And Hitler was, at that time, was very technologically advanced, and we know that, very technologically advanced. So you just, I mean, I'd like for somebody to tell me how a bunch of guys in the desert, you know, with a couple of cell phones can pull off the espionage technology.
Really, I mean, really, and when you're running down through the desert with a cell phone on a camel, man, that thing's liable just to flip right out of your hands there. But so this whole thing seems to be a creation to move us closer to the brink of World War III. Do you have an underground bunker, or what do you recommend people do to prepare themselves for this event?
I recommend an underground bunker. You know, I don't see no other way. I mean, here's what's going to happen. There's no doubt about it. It's just a matter of time, and you know as well as I do, everybody on here knows that somebody's dying to push that button. And if the extremist terrorism in Islam has a device, they're trying to suck everybody in to come into Syria. That's what they're doing. They're trying to suck us all to come in there for a reason. And I believe the reason is nuclear. Now, whether the fallen angels or the aliens or the demons or whatever come and try to stop it because of false sense of security, it would seem real plausible to me that would happen. But right now, I think that as bad as what Edward Snowden did, and he was an agent of the government, he did the government a favor by showing how easy it was to steal things. And number two, he did say, quote, that the entire governments of the world were run by extraterrestrials. Now, you know where he's hiding, don't you? He's in Moscow. He can't come back to the United States. If he does, they'll arrest him. So he's hiding in Russia, and he made that statement, and I just don't think it was a benign statement. And in fact, I know it wasn't. When I was in the dumps, that's exactly what their goal was world dominance. And, you know, there wasn't ISIS back then per se. I'm sure that they already knew the name of ISIS and all this other stuff that was going to happen that happened yesterday. But think about it. They imposed martial law, and now the United States is claiming that there is no credible threat here. But yet the police are everywhere in New York City, armed to the teeth. There's police lights going on everywhere so that you can see that show of force. And they're doing that because we're getting ready to do, I mean, there's going to be a terrorist attack here. It's going to happen, and it's going to be a bad one. And when they do that, they're going to impose martial law. All we seen last night was a mirror image of what is fixing to happen here.
You know, Greg, I seen today on Fox News, they had some general accusing Snowden of the Paris attack. And I thought, you know, that's about as stupid as blaming that one guy for a video that caused Benghazi.
Yeah, listen, Snowden did us a favor by showing us how easy it was to steal secret documents. I I don't agree with what Snowden did, but he was no more a truth sayer than I am. I mean, no less than what I was doing. Only I don't have I'm not as smart as Snowden is, that I can steal like that or hold a position that he did. But yeah, it's funny that you say that. There's no way that Snowden caused that. He already told us. Why would he, if he was going to cause something like that, or in a position to cause something like that, why would he tell us that the government was run by extraterrestrials before he did it? He would have never made that statement. He would have never made that statement.
Okay. All right, let's get to...
So Snowden do with it.
Okay. All right, let's get to a couple questions, Greg. Is the Queen Beatrice of the Netherlands in charge of the monetary policy of the entire planet?
Pretty much. I would have to say absolutely, yeah. I know that all the shots that are militarily coordinated and the shots that are called for other countries are made in Brussels. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you who confirmed that for me was Al Cuppett when you had him on there. He said the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And we need to get him. We need to get him back on the program. Greg, is it possible for France to seal their borders like they claim?
Yeah, they did it. They sealed their borders. United Airlines is the one that flies in there mostly, and United Airlines said they weren't going to fly in, but they would take people out. But they did seal off their borders. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing is a show of force. That's why I say I got to be careful where I tread when I talk about this, because my opinions could get me in trouble. But I'm going to say my opinion is that there is no way, I am not buying it, that they didn't know that something was up.
Mm-hmm.
No way.
Somebody made the suggestion. I don't know if you saw, but even on Facebook, they give you a little, and that's a easy to do software update where you can put your profile picture as red, white, and blue, indicating the colors. It is an overlay of red, white, blue to represent solidarity with France. But in France, several bridges instantly lit up with red, white, and blue lights. Were those lights pre-positioned?
Yeah, they were pre-positioned. And listen, Sydney's, opera house is red, white, and blue lighted. Taiwan's tallest building lit up in red, white, and blue. And what does red, white, and blue stand for? It stands for America. And it's pretty ominous thing that they've done. That had to be pre-positioned. I'm sure that they didn't go out there with a bunch of Christmas lights right after it happened and did it.
Right.
And I don't want to blame the people. It's the governments that are telling us a lie. I want to make that clear. The people that were killed in fact. Mm-hmm. And in other words, what I'm trying to say is the government really, it doesn't seem like, cares too much about human life. And, they're using a group that doesn't care about human life either. Mm-hmm. I seen a video yesterday of ISIS trucks with rockets and things and 50 calibers on them. I'm talking about there must have been 300-400 of them. They're just filming them. Mm-hmm. In what looks like to be an American Apache helicopter, but it could have been a Russian helicopter too. I have no idea. But another thing is, I heard this on news. Why is all the cars that they're using Toyota? Why don't we cut off their internet, cut off their cell phones, and cut off their transportation over there?
Well, that
seems like that's
absolutely. How is it that all these terrorists seem to maintain a Twitter account? They could certainly create algorithms when they said that the Twitterverse from the Islamic areas and their Facebook posts and their blogs and all this exploded with congratulations for the terrorist attack in Paris. Couldn't they have an algorithm say if somebody says congratulations, great job over there, and Allah Akbar or whatever, just delete their account? Why is it if you protest the government on Facebook or Twitter, they'll delete your account. But if you're a terrorist celebrating terrorism, somehow you get to maintain it. How is that?
I don't know. I'll give you a good example. I have a friend that I talk to quite often about things, and he's well in the know. And he said something wrong on an account and got banned for 50 years off the account for saying something that, well, I don't even think it was him. I think it was somebody else that said something. But so they banned him for 50 years off an account. If I were to say something on Facebook, listen, you know yourself, if you add too many people to it, on your personal Facebook, if you go around adding like 30, 40 people in a row, it cuts you off for 7 days for doing that. Now, why can't they shut down the Twitter account? And why are they even giving ISIS the satisfaction of letting us know that they're bragging about it?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what they did when Obama's military dropped $450 million worth of military hardware in the ISIS camp. They put YouTube videos up saying, look what just dropped out of the sky for us, gloating about it. I wonder why somebody didn't get fired for that. Because they wanted them to have it?
Of course it is. Listen, there's no way that you can pull off one world government unless the whole world is into the one world. Mm-hmm. And you got to have an enemy. You have to have a destructive enemy to create the need for one world. And martial law is just around the corner here in the United States. They're showing that in the big cities right now and in the airports the day after. It's really obvious. There's so many people that are asleep, Daniel, that just don't see what we're seeing. They just want to think, they're doing it for our protection. And some of the cops may really be thinking that they're doing it for our protection. And just like that friend of mine that is at the CERN Collider said that he believes that not all the scientists there really know the benevolent reason that they're doing this. They really don't. Mm-hmm. So, there's all these people that everybody's going to think it's for their good. That's how Hitler did it. He told everybody they could keep their lifestyle as long as they gave up their rights, and they were willing to do it because they thought it would keep them safe and make their economies grow. But you have to have a destructive cause for the reason. And so that's what ISIS is there for. All ISIS is a pawn on a chess table. And they don't know it. They want to kill everything that lives, and they're not going to be satisfied until the whole world converts.
Have you ever seen Obama get emotional or choke up when describing Christians getting their heads hacked off in Iraq or Syria?
Never. And the Christians are being persecuted just for being a Christian. Mm-hmm. Look at the Christian people from this country that went there to help try to extract the Christians, help them to fight back. Mm-hmm. And they were going on TV really making a mess of the fact that they were doing that, the Christians shouldn't be going over there, and they're risking their own life and this and that. No, I haven't never heard them choke up over it. And the Christians are being persecuted worse than anybody in the world right now.
Mm-hmm. All right, we have this question coming in for you. Was Paris a false flag?
Well, it sure was a setup. I can tell you that. I don't know about it being a false flag, but it was definitely a setup for what was going to come. And I don't think that there's going to be a very long space of time in between of what happened yesterday and what's going to happen in the rest of the world as far as martial law and sealing off everybody's borders.
I think I'm thinking of a border we need to seal off. It's called the southern border of the United States. Let me ask you about that. There's been several Republican GOP debates. There's been one, maybe two Democrat. By the way, I heard they've been scheduling the Democrat debates at the time slots and days they would hope to get the least amount of viewers. They're trying to get the least amount of viewers to watch that because they don't really want to really show them Hillary or let them, because she could mess up, she might not answer. But of all the candidates between the Republicans and the Democrats, which one do you think would secure the United States the most, and maybe instigate a war against the terrorists like it ought to be ran?
I was reluctant at one time, but if I was going to vote and say that, I would say Donald Trump.
And why is that?
He himself is an extremist. He's an extremist in the fact that he doesn't want immigrants in this country, and I agree with him on that. But I agree we ought to send the criminals back and let the other ones have due process. I'm not a prejudiced person, but with 4 million refugees here, you remember what happened during the Cuban crisis when they
dumped those people.
President Carter had them all over here. You see what they did. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think the Mexicans are over there screaming at the United States saying you're stealing all our Mexicans. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a lot of criminals that come over here, drug cartels. Mm-hmm. The drug cartels are just as bad as ISIS. Mm-hmm. People don't realize it. Believe me, I know more than most about the drug cartels because we went to war against them. Mm-hmm. And the drug cartels are just as extreme as ISIS. And that southern border, the most dangerous thing is not the Mexicans coming through. It's the ISIS coming through. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if
terrorists coming.
I wonder if we get them drug lords and killers from Mexico, maybe we can get them to fight the ISIS terrorists that's already in this country. Maybe we get those two sides fighting each other.
Well, let me tell you what. I knew that there was a conspiracy going on when I asked the commanding officer down there one time, this seems pretty easy. The snipers going out and taking them out, do a small airstrike on the house or whatever we did. He said that it could be shut down in one day. Mm-hmm. That was his exact words. A commanding officer there told me that the drug war could be shut down in a day, mm-hmm. and they don't do it.
Mm. I was. So go ahead.
The further we went along in it, the more I seen that government agencies were the drug dealers, not the drug dealers. They were just the suppliers. But you can't sell $1 billion worth of drugs at one time to one person unless they have a checkbook like that, and nobody has a checkbook like that except the government. Mm-hmm. So I just think that if we don't seal it up, not because of the Mexicans, don't get me wrong, it isn't because of the Mexicans. It's the drug cartels, it's the criminals from over there. And don't you think them criminals hate America too? The drug cartels hate America. They want to. Reagan was right when he said that. Well, no, let me tell you who said this. Escobar said that cocaine would be worse than a nuclear weapon here, mm-hmm. and he was right.
Mm-hmm. Well, I noticed that that drug cartel guy that escaped from prison put $1 million bounty on Trump. And I think he's putting $1 million payment to anybody who votes for Hillary if Hillary gets in. So you know whose side he's on. I was discussing with Diane Marshall just before the program about who can secure the country the most. When you talk about when Donald Trump says some outrageous things, when he says he's going to create a force a police force or some kind of force to go and get the illegals and move them out of the country. It instantly reminded me of Barack Obama's promise when he said they wanted some brown shirts. He wanted a civilian army that's just as well funded and has just as much money and hardware as the military. You remember that when he said that? He wanted a civilian and everybody uproar. Well, it's okay for Obama to say that, but and wreak havoc on the country. But it's not okay for Donald Trump to say that, to move illegals who have been milking his country dry, sending all their Social Security checks down south. But when he says something outrageous like rounding up 11 million people, it's like somebody saying we're going to reduce the taxes by 50%. Well, by the time it gets out of Congress, it's going to be 1. So that's the same. You have to put that way out there in the outrageous zone to even get anywhere close to some central reasonable thing. Because if you start with reasonable, which is what every politician tries to do, then the end result of that is totally unreasonable.
Right, and it doesn't matter who you vote for. I mean, they all have their different opinions. The one that's going to be in there, the one already knows that's going to be in there. It's already been predestined who's going to be in there, who's going to be the next president. And as far as getting rid of 4 million immigrants, that's not going to happen. It just can't happen. You just can't do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's logistically impossible.
Mm-hmm. But just saying that, doesn't that scare the crap out of them?
Yeah, I imagine it does. But I mean, if I was one, I wouldn't be worried about it. Mm-hmm. He says he's going to send them over there and then let them come back the right way. Well, there's children that were born here that from immigrants that have no say in it whatsoever. They're just kids. So they don't know if they're American or Mexican because they were born over here by an illegal. Well, what are they going to do? Send the parents home and tear them away from the kids, for crying out loud? Mm-hmm. Really?
Well, I'd just say start with the rapists, killers, and muggers. I'd start with them. I read a statistic one time that said Phoenix was the second most abducted for ransom city in the world, and most of those are from the Mexican drug cartel. So they bring in their own killers up from there. And of course, Syrian immigrants are going to bring in their killers in from like a Trojan horse like situation. But let's get back to the alien component of these things. And I mentioned in the first hour, Greg, is there going to be any intervention? Is there going to be a disclosure? Or is these sort of human conflicts pushing the whole alien agenda right off the table?
No, they're hiding the alien agenda. This is a total distraction. It's a total distraction against the CERN collider. 60 Minutes came on the other day about the CERN collider. And so this is a distraction. Right now, the alien agenda, the Illuminati, the blue bloodlines of the government, and the countries in the world right now are not even a question in people's minds. It's not even a thought like it was the day before yesterday. Mm-hmm. Right now, everybody's worried about security of the United States, security of France, and all these other places. And so the alien agenda right now is just not on nobody's mind. And that's what makes me think that this is part of their agenda.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Do you have any contingency plan when the aliens come down? Are you going to fight them?
Well, I don't really think we're going to need to at first. I really don't think we're going to need to at first. Shock and awe is the element of surprise is the most powerful weapon in the world. And most people that listen to me don't believe a word I'm saying about them. I'm telling you right now that under the ground and above the ground and in mountains and things where they have these bases that are hidden, they're hidden for a reason. And I'm telling you right now, if you see everything at once in a day that I've seen over time, it still worries me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen them in controlled conditions. They had limitations, and man has free will. Mm-hmm. And you have to invite these things into your life when they come. And when they show up in droves like that, it's going to scare people into, some are going to say, well, they're here to save us. Some are going to say, oh, my God, we're all doomed. I mean, Orson Welles, I believe, was paid by the government to say that over the War of the Worlds over the radio. Look at all the people that committed suicide and stuff because they thought the aliens were going to take over. I don't think they're going to have to do much of anything to get control.
Mm-hmm. Here's a question back to the ISIS thing. Where did ISIS get all those brand new Toyota trucks?
That's what I was saying earlier when we got cut out. Why is Toyota even selling vehicles to Syria? Mm-hmm. Or even around the area?
Yeah, they're clearly the official. They're clearly the official truck of ISIS killers.
They are, and Toyota is clearly being the official supplier of it. I don't get it. That's what I'm telling you. This thing's been planned out, and I just don't buy it that they don't know about it. Toyota sure knew about it. The Twitter sure knows about it. The cell phone companies know about it. It seems to me like we could go in there and do precision airstrikes before we went in at all on all the cell towers there.
Yeah.
But now there's satellite phones they use.
Well, they're so dumb over there.
Satellites.
The Middle East, Greg, the Middle East, they don't manufacture anything except for camel turd catchers and stuff like that. They don't make cell phones and they don't make cars. They have to buy it from the Western countries, because we got all the brains and they're dumber than a bag of hammers. So, you're right though. Why can't they hone in on those iPhones that they got, and then their Twitter accounts? It seems to me they should triangulate their position and just send a drone over there.
Well, and I agree. And the thing about it is, on the back of these Toyota trucks and stuff, they've got rocket launchers and 50 caliber machine guns, which if they didn't have vehicles would be in a fixed position to be taken out. The capability to move around is critical in war. And that they've got drones too, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't build them because, like I say, man, I don't think they can build anything. When you look over the Middle East, all you see is blown up buildings. They one side or the other has been blowing each other up. I don't even know how they eat. Do they grow anything? Do they just eat dirt or what? I mean, they're not going to call up Wendy's and order a hamburger over there, are they?
They grow opium. And the poppy, opium's big money. The drug companies have to have it for morphine and pain medicine. And then you've got your addicts that have it, have to have it. So it's a big industry down there. And it seems to me if they drop napalm on their opium fields and blow them up, they could cut that out. But the drug companies don't want that because they need the opium. So they're getting funded so many different ways where we're damned if we do and damned if we don't. As a people we are. As a government, it's all Illuminati, reptilian controlled government that is making all this fall into place, and they're making it all seem like it's an accident, like yesterday. That was all an accident. We don't know how it happened. Right. All we can do is impose martial law. And last night they specifically said about France that during curfew, not even martial law, during curfew, that the police was allowed to enter anybody's house and take anything they want without permission. Now, they didn't do that because they don't want the reports to flood out. They probably did it on a limited scale. But I would say this is a good trial run. And I just hate it for the people that really died there, that the government is experimenting at the expense of their lives.
Greg, have you ever been off Earth?
No.
Okay. Alrighty. Here's a question for you. Will the aliens be introduced as the ones who created mankind?
Yep. They're already doing it. You haven't seen anything. When I post this, I'm going to try to get you over the same interview, but it's posted on the Euphoria Chronicles. It's Anthony Patch in the CERN Collider. He really made my life easier by connecting the dots. He explains things that are way over your head till he gets about to the middle and the end, and then he ties it all into the alien demonic agenda. The whole thing is occultic and demonic, and people are fooled into thinking that it's there for the benefit of mankind. And it has an unlimited budget. In other words, there is no budget. The collider itself costs $60 billion, and over $60 billion, and they have an open checkbook to do whatever they want. They've already admitted that they have made contact with a parallel universe and are talking to entities on the other side. Well, we weren't meant to talk to entities on the other side except the spiritual, and in my opinion anyway, not dark entities like that right there. They're actually trying to they call, like I said earlier, they call Saturn a prison planet, and they're actually trying. They honestly think, and I don't have no reason not to think this, that the hexagon contains the fallen angels, that's the abyss and the bottomless pit of the fallen angels, and they want to release them. The super soldier program, you've heard of that?
Yes.
That super soldier program has nothing to do with man, and I know there's a couple of people out there that say they know that the super soldier program is hybrid man and all this and that. No, it might be some of it, but I'm telling you right now, the super soldier program has already been in place for a long time with the alien agenda and the fallen angels and demonic forces that are in the world. Those are the super soldiers. They're deceived, these people that run these colliders and work under these underground bases. I've seen them rip away the fabric of time and space, and entities come through a screen once. And I can tell you right now that they incinerated not only the room where the entity was, but they incinerated the entire machine and everything with a panic button that you hit that incinerates. It just blows fire and then it incinerates. Okay.
When they incinerated it, didn't that prevent them from escaping back to where they came from?
It does, but it lets them loose up top. See, what they do when they do an incineration, it's similar to a gas chamber, like cyanide gas chambers that they use for death penalties. They put it in there, they incinerate it, and then they ventilate it out of the top. The incineration only removes the physical aspects of their being. The demonic spiritual aspect of it can't be killed. You can't kill a spirit. And so it gets ventilated out of the top, out of a shaft. And so that right there, all these, listen, the Bigfoot is very real, but it's interdimensional. It's not a physical thing. That's why nobody's ever been able to capture one. There was a time at the Grand Mesa in Colorado, just outside of Grand Junction, just probably about a couple miles from Power and Ski Resort, and then she escaped. And they really wanted this thing back bad, and so they sent us out. There was a group. There was a group of about 50, if I remember right, it was either 13 or 15 of us. Anyway, we went out, and the snow was pretty deep, and it was snowing, and we found these footprints of the entity, and they were huge. They were about 18 inches long, that started in nowhere. And what I mean by nowhere, they didn't come off the road or something. They just started in the middle of a field, and then they go about 50 yards, and it ended. They were gone. So the footprints started from nowhere and stopped nowhere. In other words, there was a 50-yard span that they walked and left the footprints, but where did they come in from and where did they leave at? You see what I'm saying?
I do, and that seems to be typical of that.
Huh?
That seems to be typical of it's like they interdimensionally appear, move about, interact with our dimension, and then they exit.
Exactly, and that's what they do. And they in some of these bases, there's just like reptilians. There's what they call rogue reptilians that they're mean, just for lack of better, just they're mean, and so just let them loose because they can't control them. Or a failed experiment where they manipulated DNA with, they've got now these 3D printers, and so they make these DNA models with these 3D printers, and they put this DNA together, and most of the time it comes out as a failed experiment, and they just turn them loose at the top side because they don't know what to do with them. But listen to this. They're all chipped, all these things. They are able, when they're down in the base, to keep them in physical form in a vacuum of some kind. And I don't understand the physics behind it because I'm not a scientist, but this is what I was told, is a vacuum of some kind where they can actually chip them, and they let them out. And that's why when you see these stories and you read these things about these entities, reptilians and other things that people say they see in their house, that the Air Force shows up the next day at their front door without them even calling, because they know where they're at all the time. They know where these entities are.
Wow.
and we monitor them, and they monitor us, and that's how it works. And there are malevolent ones, and I've never, they say there's nice ones out there, and I know there's angels out there that are good, but I personally, a lot of people just get downright mad when I say this, but I just never met one that was for any good.
So you would call it
maybe that.
You'd call it a interdimensional. You'd call it an interdimensional tracker chip.
Interdimensional tracker chip. They put them in them, and people are like, "Holy cow!" The Air Force showed up the door the next day. I didn't even call them. It scared me to death because they know exactly what you just seen. They wanted to know what it did.
Okay. That also goes with UFO activity. Whenever there's UFO activity, there seems to be black helicopters in the same area all of a sudden, like they were tracking them.
Yeah, they know all about it. There's not much of the UFO agenda that doesn't. There's not much of it that flies under the radar, but there's nothing that we do that flies under the radar with them either. And those people at the Collider and these underground bases have made deals with the devil. IBM is one of the companies. D-Wave. There's a bunch of these companies that are doing these things that are reptilians themselves. They, with the three-strand DNA. The world's run by lizards, basically. They know more about us than we do about them.
I tell you what, I'm going to smack me a demon right in the damn face if I see one. But these lizard guys, man, I don't like them either.
No, I heard an interview of a guy he had on there, the Reptoid Slayer. Is that what he called himself?
Yeah, Caesar the Reptoid Slayer had one.
Inconsistencies with me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? I never met a Reptoid Slayer. We had to kill some down there, but we weren't Reptoid Slayers. You know what I'm saying?
But a damn demon slayer, I'll be one of them.
They're not stupid. They're highly intelligent beings, the Bigfoots and all these things. They're not going to let you catch them. They're not going to let you catch them. And especially the reptilian is the most intelligent of all of them. And, he mentioned, and maybe he was dropping acid, I don't know, but he said that it was with a priest. Mm-hmm. Priest showed him the reptilian and chased him, and he killed it.
Yep.
He was the Reptoid Slayer.
Yep.
Well, he's the first one I ever heard of, and I was in a position, in a controlled condition with him where we could kill him, and 90% of the time couldn't. So I don't see that being true. I just don't.
Mm-hmm. So King's daughter wants to know, is Bigfoot an experiment?
He's a failed experiment. He said the Bigfoot, believe it or not, is more intelligent than a human being. But listen, humans weren't born with fangs and claws. You know why? Because we weren't created to go out and kill. Even though we do this, we're all connected. People are. But these things are disconnected. These are things that have never lived. And not only do they want to be you or hate you, they want to be you. Mm-hmm. They hate you. And they're just waiting for their time. And I guess when they go out and stuff, they're just, it's like being out of jail for a while, I guess you might say, to them.
Do Bigfoots...
Bigfoot's a very intelligent thing, man. It's nothing to mess around with.
Do Bigfoots ever drop a load in the forest?
I don't know about that. I have. Some people think they have. I don't know. Interdimensional beings don't need to do that. They're spiritual beings. The soul lives forever, whether it goes to hell or heaven or the blackness, darkness that's reserved for some forever. So spiritual beings don't need to eat, sleep. The reptilians do it in physical form. They do the eating because some human reptilians, or I should say reptilian, reptilian humans, because they shapeshift into human. They need to eat, but they do it out of ritualistic cannibalism, and they do it to create fear. I was telling somebody the other day that these beings, they actually get drunk on fear to a point that it's like a drug to them. And so they get addicted to the fear. And so when they come around people and they create the fear by shape-shifting into their worst, what they normally do, Daniel, is they shape-shift. They already know what you're afraid of. And they'll usually shape-shift into something that scares you to death. Uh-huh. And when it does, they get highly intoxicated, like we would if we drank a bottle of bourbon or did heroin on this fear, and they get addicted to it. They're addicted to the fear. And
like a drug.
That's what I tell people, and I don't hold anybody at fault for not being afraid, because I've seen and I'm still afraid. But if you can maintain a level of no fear, once you realize what you're up against, they go away. If there's not enough fear there for them to get intoxicated, they leave.
Well, we certainly don't want to feed their fear. Let's get to another question. This is from somewhere in the United States. It says, why did China build a huge city with a reptilian eye as the headstone of the building? Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, those, there's Dracos and Draconians species that run the governments too, and the spirit of the dragon hovers in China. And so there's a lot of reptilian agenda in China, I wouldn't even be surprised if China doesn't pull some of the strings here in America. Mm-hmm. They pull a lot of strings everywhere else.
Yeah, with those squinty eyes look reptilian.
Yeah, they worship the dragon over there.
No wonder. So really, when they say it's Year of the Dragon, they really mean the dragon. They really mean dragons, reptilians.
They literally mean it.
All right. Here's another question. It says, why does Putin say Israel is training ISIS? Is there any truth to that, Greg?
I don't know if there's any truth to that.
Greg, we had Diane Marshall on the program before you came on, and we were discussing the fact how that Russia seems to be finding all kinds of ISIS encampments, and the United States is supposed to have been fighting them for the last 3-4 years. How do all these encampments still survive if we've been attacking them, unless the fact that we haven't been attacking them at all?
Well, that we're in conflict with Russia. We're butting heads over there because they're bombing our interests and we're bombing theirs. And somebody asked me the other day, do you think you're going to go to war with Russia? Well, yeah, and the fact that we're not going to go to war, they're not going to come here, and we're not going to go there. We're going to take the war to Syria so that we can fight Russia without being on their land. Believe it or not, Russia's protecting Assad. And so the encampments that Russia finds there, if they bomb it, it's one of ours. In other words, the Iraqi people that we're trying to train, which isn't going to work no more, but we were trying to train and advise. They were Russia was bombing those. And when we bombed ISIS, that was Russia's interest because they're protecting Assad.
Now, are you for or against Assad?
Against.
You're against him? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, changing course here. This is a question from Curious out of the live chat. What's your take on the flat Earth cover-up theory?
I don't know what to think about that right there. I really don't have an opinion on it one way or another.
Okay. All right, we got a bunch more questions. Let's try to do some rapid fire. All right, Phil in North Carolina wants to know what weapons can kill these reptilians? Well,
if you can catch them in physical form and hit them with a copper bullet, and I've said it before, copper kills them. But the Word of God also runs them off too. And let me reiterate, these are spiritual entities. You can't really kill a spiritual entity. Now, I have, when they're in their shape-shifted physical form, but all you're doing is killing the body, and the soul goes to another physical form. Now, when we die, and this is just my belief, my personal belief, we either go to heaven or hell right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but these spiritual beings, fallen angels and such, they don't go anywhere until the judgment day. So you might kill their physical body, but you're not going to kill their spirit, and it'll just transfer. And that is, a lot of people thought that was just a dumb theory from exorcist movies and stuff, but a spirit can jump from one body to the next. Mm-hmm. You kill the body, and if it gets close enough where somebody else touches that body, it'll jump right into another person.
Mm. Have you had to fend off some of these things?
Yeah, I have. I really have. Literally. You have to stay, prayed up all the time, and what I do, and a lot of people don't believe in God the way I do, and I don't have a problem with that. That's, everybody has their own thing, but my thing is staying prayed up and reading Ephesians 6 about the whole armor of God. I got that's for another show, but I got a full understanding about the whole armor of God the other day, and without it, you're just in a position of defeat before you even start. And mm-hmm. I know from prayer, and I have friends that their wives or their husbands are Christian, and they're not. They're spiritual, and they're good people, real good people, and I love them to death. Mm-hmm. But prayer works. I'm telling you right now, you've got to be prayed up and read up mm-hmm. to understand this. And when you have somebody like me or some of your other guests that are really good, I've heard some really good guests on there, we're trying to tell you the real honest truth, and that we're in a lot of trouble, and that you need to pray up, and not, because most of the people they're just deceived. A lot of people are deceived. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Just like the people at CERN Clyde are thinking that this is for our benefit. They are so deceived. I feel sorry for them. They're so deceived. They have no idea what they're getting ready to do.
Greg, you mentioned about the Bigfoot being an intelligent, interdimensional being. Somebody wants to know, why is it that every picture of Bigfoot seems to be off camera, blurred, obscured? Are they doing that?
I think it's that internet. But I got a friend, and I can't mention his name because I told him I wouldn't, who watched one go up in a apple tree, or they put an apple there or something. And when it reached for the apple and grabbed it, the Bigfoot, the apple disappeared. It didn't. You couldn't physically see it be taken up, but it disappeared. So when you try to take a picture of something like that, it's obscured. I haven't really seen too many real clear pictures. I've seen some on YouTube of clear pictures of Reptilian and the subtunnels, the sewer systems and the L's. And I've seen a picture of the rake and the Slendermans that were pretty clear. And but like the Bigfoot and stuff, it's hard to take a picture of something that you can see. It's like a friend of mine on Euphoria Chronicles, he shows me pictures of holograms all the time of in California, they're spraying the chemtrails like crazy. Mm-hmm. But you see the chemtrail coming up, but there's no airplane in front of it. And ones you can see through them. And when you try to take a picture of something like that, it doesn't show up in the picture. And the same reason, all these years, you think somebody would have captured a Bigfoot by now, or any one of these entities, really.
Well, I've tried capturing one. I can't really get them. Here's a question for you: does the United States have a secret space program, and if so, who's running it?
They do, and NASA and some corporation. I'm afraid to mention. I'm afraid I'll get in real big trouble. When you start mentioning corporations, you can get in big trouble. Mm-hmm. But they do. They have a secret space program going on. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I know a couple real nice people that retired. A couple that retired from NASA. If I were to ask them about a secret space program, would they know about it?
Yeah, they will.
Okay. All right. Here's a question from this is from Canada. Is the flood of refugees in Europe designed to take it down?
I believe so. I mean, come on. When Hitler was doing his thing, okay, well, and we did bring some of the Nazis over here, but just put that aside for a minute. Would we let all the Nazis that we know were warmongers come over here? Wouldn't that be a setup if we let Hitler come over here and bring all his army with him? And you know, oh, we're just going to be here for a little while, and we're running from this man. It's just like inviting over the enemy. You know, some of these refugees are probably, some might be Christian, and some might, and there are. You know, I've been really hard on the Muslims over the year, but I know a lot of Americans, troops that were saved by Muslims, and that they risked their, well, that movie about those Navy SEALs with Mark Wahlberg, that whole village risked their life to save his.
That was really nice.
So there are Muslims out there that don't agree with this, you know, but how do you tell?
Well, that's right. Now, I on Facebook, on my Facebook feed, sometimes I'll get an article that says that Muslims by the hundreds are converting to Christianity. Is there any truth to that you may know of?
Yeah, there is a lot of truth to that. That is happening. It's happening everywhere.
Well, maybe they just played, you know, as Muslims believing in Islam just to survive, because there's so many killers over there that to say that you're anything other than that, you risk certain death, and certainly you're going to lose your head.
That's right. And I had a conversation with a good friend of mine about that very subject, and we talked about that there's a lot of Christians that are portraying to be Muslim because they want to live. And we were talking about, and you know, the God of the Bible that we both believe in, that God's got his top secrets and the enemy's got his top secrets too. But, you know, God knows their top secrets. But one of the top secrets is some, you know, God tells some people to just be quiet, you know, because they have a purpose for later. And you're exactly right. I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's the truth. There are a lot of Christians that are posing to be Muslim. But I want to say that I do know some Muslims that are not like that. They're just not. I know them, and they just don't, you know, they were saying today that, you know, the forces that are Muslim that want ISIS out as well as we do, the moderate Muslims, they just won't do it unless we're backing them, because they're not technologically advanced to carry it out. And they're afraid to do it because they'll get snuffed out for doing it. And then, you know, you only got the ones left. And I heard a Buddhist guy talk, and he was a real hardliner, this Buddhist. He killed a lot of Muslims, but he has this Buddhist, pretty much a country near China. In his whole area, he doesn't allow the Muslims in. And here's what he said. He goes, why is everybody cracking down on me for keeping the Muslims out of Buddhism? For the simple fact that they're not going to be satisfied until the whole world's converted. So the extremists want the whole world converted. But there are some moderate Muslims, and there are some Muslims, you know, that are Christians that can't say anything right now. If I was a Muslim over there and I had my children and stuff, unless it was just the last stand, then I would, if I knew I was going to die anyway, I'd just go ahead and proclaim the gospel of peace right in front of them. But until then, you don't know what God's told them. He may have told them to keep quiet.
Do you know anything about men in black and visiting hospitals?
Yeah, there were men in black in the underground bases, and there's some men in black, believe it or not, that aren't even in the underground bases, that are above ground. You can pretty much tell them they have a real pale skin about them. They look like they won't take their sunglasses off, and they're tall. And some of them are actually tall grays. But they look, because of their DNA modifications that they do, they have produced hybrids that are close enough to human where they'll send them out, these men in black. They're scary enough to get their point across and human enough to look the part.
So can men in black, can they travel interdimensionally? Are they stuck in this plane?
I would say they're stuck in this plane. The ones I've seen, I never seen them walk through walls or anything like that. But they definitely weren't human. You know what I'm saying? But they looked the part. If they took their glasses and everything off, you would run because it's obvious what they are. They usually run in pairs, and they go to hotels and hospitals, and they shut people up. You know, and I'm sure that they reveal themselves to them what they are. But there's a real stench of fear about them when they're around you. It's a cold, dark feeling of dread that you get inside when you're near one.
Are they gay?
No.
Okay. We have this from Arkansas, Bob from Arkansas. He says, with all the different races being spoken of, that's, I believe, alien races, would it not stand to reason that if they were like us but much larger, you would see them if they look like greys and reptoids and so on? So, you know, do they always shapeshift sort of down? Because it seems to me a lot of the reptilians are sort of larger creatures.
No, they can shapeshift down, and listen, they're counting on the element of surprise. They show themselves periodically in their crafts and different things, and they do horrendous experiments on people. But they're counting on the element of surprise. Seeing one or two here and there, or even dozens of them in the sky and stuff, is one thing. But wait till you see millions of them everywhere, and you see the alien entities that come out of the crafts. You won't. I bet everybody will drop their guns.
When you were in the deep underground military bases, Greg, how many races did you see?
Oh my God. There was the Greys, the Tals, the Reptilians, the Palladians. There were so many different races there. And then you had not races, but dark entities that were more malevolent than these beings are. And so what do you call them? You know, they were all different too, and they're just I explained to a person the other day, it was when I seen the one come out of the screen, it was just a dark mass of pure evil. I've never experienced to this day, since then or to this day, the pure evil and the dread and the fear of something that came through. And it took form of what looked to be a shape of a man, but I really don't know what it was. It was just a black mass, and yet what you could smell was a strong smell of sulfur and plasma. And plasma is ozone, if you know what I'm talking about. When you're in a room that has a lot of static in it, or where lightning strikes, before it strikes, you smell this
you do.
ozone. And this thing was electrically connected to another dimension. But when it came through, never in my life was I that scared. Never, ever. And never, ever since have I been that scared. I've never seen anything like it. So it's similar to when people see shadow people that come out of the wall or hanging over them and trying to suck the life out of them. That's what they do. They draw on your electrical energy that you naturally have, and they suck the life out of you. And when this thing came through, I just can't even put in words the absolute dread and fear. I really thought that I was going to die of fear. I thought I was a dead man, not by bullets or an attack, from the fear alone. That's how scared I was.
Wow.
I thought I was going to die of fear. It took me months to get over that. I shook like a leaf every time somebody mentioned it.
Where did this happen?
This happened at underground base at Dulce, and what they had done is they put us in a room, and the bad part about being in security over there, really in any compartmentalized program that they have over there, is no one person really knows the whole story. In other words, when they assemble something like the machine that they were building to bring this thing through, it looked like a flat screen TV about an inch thick, but it was about 400 inches from diagonal from corner to corner. Mm-hmm. And what they did was they told us to go down there, and that we were supposed to be guarding some people, and I can't name the corporations. They were from some corporations there to make sure that they were safe. And so I took a few guys with me down there and said, look, this is a pretty routine thing here. They're going to do some kind of an experiment here. So we got down there, and it was a door that I was always curious about. They took us down a hallway, and in the middle of the hallway, you could turn left, and there isn't many places down there where they have left and right turns. It's usually looped. In other words, the hallway will go and it kind of loops around into different compartments. And this one here, there was in the loop, there was a left-hand turn that you took into it, and it dead-ended with a metal door that looked similar to a giant vault. And they opened up the door, and it was a 4-foot thick steel door. Well, we were a little bit apprehensive because, what would they be keeping behind there? So we went in there, and it looked like a big giant TV screen to us with a lens that was pointed at it. Mm-hmm. And so when they shut the door, I asked, what can we expect? And he goes, I don't know. He said, just be ready. This is where we incinerated that day. He said, just be ready to, if we'd say to try to shoot this thing, to keep it at bay long enough for all of us to get out of the door. Well, we knew that our job was to let them out of the door first. We were the last ones to go out. So they shut the door, and this whining, this real, it sounded almost like a C-5 engine on a C-5 Galaxy at the Air Force cargo plane, winding up, and it made this real high-pitched winding sound. It was almost ear-piercing. And then a laser, like plasma, was going back and forth real fast across this screen. It looked like plasma cutter with a laser in it. But at any rate, it ripped fabric and time, and it came out. And what it was they had this little crane that in other words, to come out, it had to attach itself to something to pull it out. You had to be able to grab onto something. It just couldn't come through the screen. So it looked like one of them robotic things that they explode bombs with, mm-hmm. and rolled it up to it, and a mechanical arm went in, and it grabbed hold of it. When it pulled out, what we noticed was, the first thing we noticed was that the arm looked like it aged 1,000 years. I mean, it looked like it was just a pile of rust coming out. And this dark entity was on the other end of it, holding it. When they pulled it through, the scientists that were in there from that corporation started screaming in pure terror, kill it, we got to get out of here. And we just cut loose with everything we had and was backing towards the door. And when we shut the door, we hit the panic button and incinerated the machine and everything in there. And then there's a lever that you pull, and it opens up a hatch and ventilates it. And so when it was over, number one, to say the least, we were so mad that I was ready to shoot those scientists for putting us in a compromised position like that without even knowing what we were going to see. And the fear had come over me so bad, I think we all peed in our pants, including the scientists. I'm just telling you straight up. And I asked him, I said, I had a gun to one of them's head, and I was shaking. I wanted to shoot him for what he did, and he was saying, don't. And I said, what did we just see? And he goes, I don't know what it was. And I said, what just happened when we incinerated? He says, we let it loose above. So whatever that thing was is roaming around. And I asked, how many times did they let things like that out? And they said, are you talking about this year or every year? I said, just this year. And he said, hundreds of thousands.
Wow. I don't know what the
So-
hell's coming through there, Greg, but could you just blast it with an Oregon blaster or some kind of thing? I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, did you seal the thing up? Or are they coming
brother,
back?
there was no Oregon blaster or no copper bullet stopping that thing, whatever it was. It was just, I swear, I felt like I was in hell. And I felt so guilty after that because I just felt so guilty about it. I don't know why. I thought, my God, if that thing's at the top. I mean, Daniel, the evil that this thing was, whatever it was that we saw, was so evil that I'm telling you, I thought I was going to die. There wasn't nothing we could do about it, and it came out, and I can see it in my mind right now as I'm telling you about it. It was but the scary part was them saying that thousands of them were up top. You know, they did this over and over. I said, what about the screen? Did it incinerate? He goes, yeah, but it's only a few $1 million. We'll put it back together in a few days. I said, I'll tell you this right now. If anybody opens up that door, they're going to die. Well, it's not in there right now. I said, well, I don't believe it. I'm not buying it. I said, let's just get out of here. And they said, well, are you going to escort us? I said, if you're going to leave, you better go with us now, or you're going to stay right here. But I remember when we would do our security tours, and what it is you have to go walk around security, and they got what they call taco wands, and there's little metal circles that are glued to the walls, and you take this wand and you touch it to it, and it goes beep, and then they download it in the computer after your shift's over to make sure that you checked everything out. It tells you where you'd been, at what time you've been, everywhere inside that place. And so the commander came to us in our quarters there 3 days later and says, look, we downloaded your ones and y'all haven't been doing your duty. I was still shaking, and he said, what happened? You guys are messed up. I said, I mean, it was that visible 4 days later. I said, and I explained to him what we seen, and he goes, well, can you show me exactly on the map? Because on the wall we had a map of everywhere everything was, because when you got somebody new, you had to take them and train them with that taco on where to go, and you told them where not to go, that it was dangerous. And so I showed them on the map where it was, and the next time we went down there, it was about a month and a half later. We were doing our security detail down there, just normal security, nothing abnormal going on, just walking around making sure everything was secure. And we noticed that there was another door that was flush with the wall, that they had closed that area completely off. So that's how bad it was. Mm-hmm. That Halsey themselves considered a threat and double doored it and closed it up, and we didn't have to go in there no more.
How many people were with you?
About 22.
Did the scientists get out?
Yeah, we had to let them out first. That was our job. In other words, we had to lay down our lives for these guys, and our job was to make sure that the scientists and the reptilians and stuff like that, they were the most important part of the complex. When you go to these complexes, these entities and aliens are the most important part. And so our job was it was to guard scientists and things, because they had so many millions, or if not billions of dollars tied up in these guys, with their budget and stuff that they had down there. So we were the least important. So it was important that we made them get them out first, and we came out last. If one of those guys died without reason, without reasonable suspicion that we had to do it, we were in big trouble. And, I don't know what they would do to you down there, feed you to something or lock you in a room with something, but it wasn't going to happen to me. I was either going to die protecting them, or that's just the way it was. I was going to die protecting them, because I didn't know what the consequences would be if I didn't.
Well, what kind of weapon did you have at that time?
Just regular We had what looked similar to an M16 or an AR-15, but it shot 300 Win Mag and 338 Win Mag shells, about 3,000 feet a second, and they were copper. But that day right there, when we were shooting, the bullets were vaporizing before they hit the target. I never seen anything like it. They didn't make it to the target, and the target was only about 100 feet away, 7,500 feet away. Also, I remember that it was holding it at bay and keeping it in the same spot, but it wasn't doing any damage. And I know we hit it because we had two miniguns down there that were permanently, they were in a fixed position. They were permanently mounted to the concrete floor. And those things shoot 6,000 rounds a minute. So we were in there about 15 seconds during that thing. So all of us shooting together probably spent 10,000 rounds altogether total. Wow. And it do a thing to that thing except hold it at bay. That's all it did, was hold it at bay.
10,000 rounds. That reminds me of the scene in Predator where they're shooting in the forest. That one guy goes crazy with the 50 cal minigun. That looked like about 10.
Used. It's a minigun. It's an electric Gatling gun. It won't run. It's electrical, and it spins and runs it, and it's water cooled. It uses antifreeze in it to keep the barrels cool, and they'll still heat up orange hot if you run them too much. So, there was at least 10 seconds of full fire from 3 miniguns. And the rest of it was from our automatic weapons. And the best we could do was hold it at bay till we got out. And I was so scared that door wouldn't close fast enough. And we hit that panic button just before the door did close, to the point where fire came out and burned our clothes. Wow. So, and then we pulled a lever for ventilation and let it out. And then I asked, is that the only thing that came through? He goes, yeah, but it can split off into dozens, if not hundreds, of itself, similar to an amoeba. So
where is that thing now?
Where's
the entity now? Is it still down there?
No, it was let out up top.
So you're saying it's out here? It's walking among us?
Planet Earth, walking around.
And resides in the Oval Office, probably. So this thing, do you think that when it came out, it split up?
No, it didn't do it when we did it. That's just what they told us what it was. Now, the scientists, I had my gun to his head. I wanted to know what I just seen that almost, not literally killed me, but almost killed me from fear. I was not in my right frame of mind after that. I can promise you that I was not in a good frame of mind, and it was almost a psychotic feeling that went over all of us. We almost got psychotic over it, like a big hallucination. And I just had a gun to his head, and I really was going to shoot this scientist if he didn't tell me what I just seen. And then he was crying, and he goes, I wished I knew. That's the only explanation we get. And I said, well, we just ventilated it, so tell us, did we kill? And he goes, and he didn't want to say anything. I said, and I pushed the gun real hard to his head. I said, you tell me right now, did we kill it? And he goes, no, we just ventilated it out the top. And I said, oh my God, so you're telling me that we just let this thing out in the desert and it's just going to go do whatever it does? And he goes, yes.
Greg, where are these scientists now? Who do they work for?
I don't want to name the corporation. I'm scared because a friend of mine named the corporation the CERN Collider and got in a lot of trouble. And one of the corporations that was down there was the same corporation that works with CERN. So I'm afraid to say it.
So there are various CERN colliders being built. Are they all attempting the same thing?
They're all attempting the same thing and have a different agenda. There's another big one that a friend of mine keeps telling me about in Texas that I need to find out about. The listeners need to find out the name of the one that's in Texas. It's supposed to wreak some really bad havoc.
So are we supposed to believe
all
that?
I know is here's the thing, Daniel. That black mass I told you about. That's what CERN says that they can release by the billions because they figured out a way to keep the porthole open without a device reaching in.
Okay, is it the CERN collider is miles around? So where is this actual opening at? Is it in the center of CERN, or is it they opening the door to the collider and something's getting out? Where is the actual portal at?
The portal is inside of it. Okay, when these particles collide, they open up portholes. And according to Anthony Patch, this thing was 1954 when they started doing it. And the reason that they built the collider, the very reason they built it in the beginning, was so that they could collide nuclear particle atoms together, and they could, by just hitting one atom, instead of a bunch of them to make a total nuclear explosion, they could use a computer model and be able to tell what the yield would be off a nuclear weapon. Well, once they started doing that, they started bombarding other particles, subatomic particles. And I know that element 115 was being done down in Dulce, which is anti-gravity. And what they do is they put it in a small accelerator and they bombard it with protons until one sticks, and then it's element 116, and then it decays. It doesn't explode, it decays, but when it decays, it releases a tremendous amount of energy, which is focused into a lens that opens up a vacuum so that these UFOs can fall through. And that's how they operate. It's called element 115. And they mine it there, and it's deadly. Element 115 is deadly. And Bob Lazar will confirm this story that I'm telling you about element 115. And so inside these UFOs, they had these small, I guess what you would call colliders, and they use element 115 in it, and they collide it with protons until one sticks, and then when it decays, it creates anti-gravity, which really isn't anti-gravity. It really is a vacuum that's opened up that they can move through. You see, they can move through it with small of a propulsion as small as you going and blowing it with your mouth can propel them at tremendous speeds because it's a vacuum. There is no, it's like they open up space and time and can travel through it.
Wow. So now, have you ever been to a facility that has a CERN collider?
No. Where I was at, they were doing it, like I say, on a small scale. And I know the colliders were born, but I know that they figured out space and time under these underground bases by doing these experiments on a small scale. They didn't have, the CERN collider is 17 miles in diameter. What they were doing was using plasma waves. And I'm not a scientist, so I can't understand how it works. All I can tell you is what happened when they did it. But they were doing it on screens, okay? They could not hold the portal open, number one, and they had to have something to reach in to the void so that the entity could latch on and be pulled out. It couldn't come out just on its own. So the collider, from what I understand, the CERN collider, has the capability of holding the porthole open and doesn't need nothing to reach in and get it out. And by sustaining its being open, the entities can come through. Well, the way I understand it is a frequency is sent to the bottom of Saturn, or to the abyss, the hexagon abyss, and that the fallen angels can travel through this porthole into the CERN collider and come out.
Wow. I'll tell you,
and
I knew that.
I know that in detail.
Well, this idea that they're shooting this particle around there, trying to, originally they said they were trying to find the God particle, and this and that, is obviously a hoax. But who's paying for all these CERN colliders?
There's over 100 and 60 countries involved in it. So there is no, I'm going to
Greg, let me
this on you Chronicles again. I mean, they can go on there and find it. I have it posted on there. Anthony Patch actually talking 3 hours in great detail. All I'm doing is skimming the surface.
Yeah, we want to we want to get Anthony Patch on the show. But let me ask you something though. The actual Hadron CERN collider design, was it downloaded from the reptoids or the insectoids or the buttoids or whoever else is out there, kind of like in Contact where they downloaded the ship, the
it's
design?
Alien technology. It's demon technology. And the first thing that he mentions, the whole thing's centered around the occult. The people that design it and work it have centered it around the occult. And the collector, where the detector where the particles actually collide, is in the shape of a Hindu god. So, in other words, where the two particles collide and the pieces scatter off, are in the Hindu god of destruction is what it's called. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that statue. That is odd. They have that statue there.
Yeah, it is. But that's actually the colliding. That's where they collide inside of that. So, when they talk about the God particle, that right there tells you that they're trying to play God. And, this device is going to open up an enormous amount of evil. And according to the interview with Anthony, which, I'm not saying anything's top secret because you can get it off of YouTube, actually. There's certain one. I don't know exactly. I've got the right one, but it's not a video. It's just an audio. And what he says is that this whole thing is centered around the occult. And some of them don't know what they're doing there, but some of them do know what they're doing. And even Stephen Hawking made the comment about it that CERN collider was total insanity. Stephen Hawking, who doesn't even believe in God, said that they were insane.
Yeah, I'm going to pull Stephen Hawking out of his damn wheelchair and smack him because I don't like some of the things he says.
No, I don't like some of the things he says, but he has a right to say them. And without knowing, people on the dark side, it's hard to understand the light. So you need people on the dark side. And I was telling somebody the other day that people that are the people that you can tell the truth to are the people that are in the occult, a lot of them, because they already understand that there is another parallel universe and that there is a spiritual dimension. You've just got to straighten them up on what the spiritual dimension is. It's the people that don't know evil or good that are hard to find, get it out. And my friend Amu Israel over in Africa told me that the people over there, when he heard that thing about the collider, he listened to it, and he says that most of the people there won't believe it unless the preacher says it's true. You see what I'm saying? So the preacher, when you get somebody like that, then they really don't understand the dark side. And 80% of Jesus's ministry on the earth was casting out demons.
Right, and then we had
once you understand that, it's a whole lot easier to accept the light, the good. That there is, if there's absolute evil in the world, then there has to be good, right?
Yes, true. That's true. So you're saying they offset each other. Okay, well, if the evil side has the CERN Hadron Collider, what does the good side have?
It's the CERN Collider are bringing into the world the forces of darkness that not only the Bible warns us about, but other books as well. But mostly the Bible. And the reason I was telling you I've been studying Ephesians 6 about the whole armor of God is right now, that's one of the most important things. I was telling a friend the other day about this very thing, and in Romans 1, when you start reading it, it tells you about women exchanging relations with other women and doing which is unseemly, and men burning lust for one another. So you can go ahead and chalk that off now, because that's already been done, and it's getting spreading like wildfire, homosexuality. Number two, God goes into telling you not about a person, but he's telling you, like the president does, the State of the Union address about the government. If you'll read on in Romans 1, it tells you that they're backbiters and backstabbers, hated of God, worship creation instead of the creator, and blah, blah, blah. And he keeps on going on and on and on. And he's really slapping them around, but he's telling you what the government was in those days. And then it says, not only do they practice it, but they approve of, and not only do they take an enjoyment of doing it, but they approve of those who practice it. That's the State of the Union address, and that's already been done. So those are the two things you can chalk off. And the next thing is the darkness of this world. And if you read in Ephesians, it plainly tells you that we don't struggle against flesh and blood. It tells you about the alien agenda in Ephesians. It says we don't struggle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and the rulers of the darkness of this world and spiritual wickedness in high places. That's where we sit right now. That's where we're on the very edge of all of this becoming a reality that we've been talking about over the last few years. This terrorist attack is the beginning of the end. This is the beginning. And I'm not going to give no dates or anything because I don't know. But I know that they imposed martial law. We haven't seen that in a long time. And they're already showing a show of force in this country. And all these countries are, and one guy yesterday on Fox News says, it seems like ISIS is trying to suck us all into Syria. They're doing this to make us come to them because they have something waiting on us. And I believe it's nuclear mine. And I believe, the CERN colliders in France. And, Anthony Patch goes into some of the things that will happen, that are evil during the time that they're running this, and they're going to be having it on, and I can't remember when, I think it was October 15th, and I might be wrong, till December 24th. They're going to turn it off on December 24th. His concern is on December 13th, when I speculate that they'll be running it at full power. But it is kind of ironic that the CERN collider is in France and that this happens. And the first thing that Andy Patch talks about is the earthquakes and the volcanoes that this caused. Well, an hour before the terrorist attack happened, they had a 7.0 earthquake in Japan at the same time as this terrorist attack. So it seems to me like the doors of evil, like the porthole could be opening up. Now, I could be completely wrong, but it's just weird that I heard that things like this would happen before they happened. It's just not a coincidence.
So do you think that you have been called, Greg, to release this information? Do you feel like various as you said, and by the way, people who logged on earlier would have heard us discuss the fact that you have classified information, which you're going to send here to the Edge broadcast. But do you feel like spiritually wise?
This classified information, some of it's going to be edited out, okay? But it's as close as where we can release about the truth and about what you can do about it that we can do without getting ourselves in trouble. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And you're going to be the first to have it.
Well, excellent. All right, we'll put that on our website once you send that on over. But what I was saying, do you feel like you have a special calling to release some of this classified information or information that maybe somebody is supposed to hear? Do you feel like there's a supernatural part to you talking and coming on shows like this?
I do, and people may roll their eyes when I say it, but we all have a destiny in our lives. We're all put here for a purpose, all of us, each and every one of us. And I always tell people, when you pray, you need to pray, what is my destiny? What am I supposed to do in my life? Because you're immortal. Once you know your destiny, you're immortal until that's been carried out. And not only do I feel that I've been called to do this, and several other people, I'm not the only one. You're going to hear on some of these audio recordings, and I'm still going to have some more talks with some of these people in the upcoming weeks that we're going to release to you, because we feel, after last night, we got together and we feel that it's important and it's our duty to God that we tell everybody everything that we know that we can possibly tell without getting ourselves in trouble. So some of this you're going to have to do the math on. Some of it you might not even believe it. But it's true, and it's these people that I have these conversations with have been there and done that. So there are people that are firsthand. This isn't third-party knowledge. You're hearing it straight from the horse's mouth, just like I told you about that black entity. So you're going to hear some things that are pretty scary, but our encouragement is not to be scared, because we are going to show you. I'm not going to open up my mouth about what we talk about and how to defeat it, because it might sound biased to some people, but we also have the remedy to protect yourselves from it. Mm-hmm. That's why we feel like now's the time. This has been 9 years in the making, these conversations. We just decided as a team last night that it's time to release the information, and we decided to use you as an outlet.
Well, I certainly feel honored on behalf of the Edge viewers and listeners. Does your team have a name?
No, it's just a team of us that are like-minded and have been through and seen atrocities and have lived through it, and we've lived through it for a reason. There's not a reason that a man goes underground, gets the living daylight scared out of him till he's totally traumatized like I am from some of this stuff. And it even traumatizes you worse when you come out and you tell somebody about it and they don't believe it, and you know that at one point they're going to see it. Mm-hmm. We're all like-minded, and we've all had a traumatic experience with either the military or the Illuminati and some of these occult groups. There's a lady that's going to be on there, and I won't mention her name yet because I don't know what's going to be edited out, who was really in deep with, I guess, what I would say would be the Illuminati. It was definitely ritual occult abuse and brainwashing. And you're going to hear the conversations that we had with her as well. And so you're going to hear conversations of people straight from the horse's mouth, bro. And they're going to tell you exactly how they got out of it and what protects them. And I'm going to do the same.
How many people are in that group?
Well, there's a lot of conversations, so I don't know. Like I say, we will tell you, mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. But I can't just say it over the air because mm-hmm. Okay. I don't want to violate anybody's privacy yet until we've talked to all of them and found out. You know, my name's going to be, of course, it's going to be out there, and I just don't want to release any names yet, even though I know that I can until I'm for sure it's that, just out of respect for the others, because I don't know how much trouble we can get into over this, because we do name some people and corporations in there, and I just don't know. And the person that's asking the questions to us, that helped with us coming together, who brought us together, you won't be able to hear his questions. His voice will be completely edited out. How we're going to fix the questions, I don't know, but we have, I don't know how many hours. I know that I personally have done at least a couple hundred hours of of conversations with some people. So at this point, that's all I can say.
Okay, what's the time frame of you getting this classified information over here to the Edge?
I can go ahead and probably let you know by tomorrow.
Okay.
First, we had to find out if you were going to do it. And so, you know, and I have another friend who has a rock band who is kind of patriotic, anti-government, and he's got a song called Area 51 that I was wanting you to play one time on your show for everybody. It's a really good song, and it gets to the heart of the matter in the song. And so there's a lot of people involved, even in music, that we're going to expose you to. And, you know, I went to a thing, and I met Nikola Tesla's niece at this thing. And I don't want to say anything for fear of slander on her, because I know that she's a powerful person in the scheme of things. And so at this place, I met other people too, that we had conversations. And some of this stuff is going to blow people's mind when they hear it. And I just don't want to jeopardize us getting it on there and us being shut down before we even start. So we're using you as an outlet on this, and in some of it we'll have a disclaimer on there and a warning about the content, because some of it's pretty disturbing. So,
well, I'll tell you what, I love disturbing content, Colonel.
Well, you're going to get it, and we chose to use an outlet.
I disturb myself.
You know, if everybody wants to hear it, that's the only place they're going to be able to hear it right now.
Right here.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. And if you have a song or something you want to send, you can send that too. I don't care. I'll play it.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, I would do the name of the my friend is Paul Tapetti. He's I guess the head of the band Poker Face, but they write they're patriotic and anti-government kind of music. You know, that's really good stuff. It's really good, and they have a lot of songs out, and Area 51's one of them, and they're writing more. But they were really good when I was there, and we had a real good time. It's called the Freedom Palooza, and I met some quite interesting characters there, to say the least.
Well, I think you'd right up there with them. Hey, got a question for you. Do you know anything about what's happening in Antarctica?
No, I don't, other than that they found alien technologies there and from the Nazis, and I know that there is things going on there, but I don't know what's going on there.
All right, there's a few more questions that come in. You mentioned preachers earlier. Somebody sent the question in. Are most of America's preachers controlled by the government?
Yeah, and the fact that they want to retain their 501c3, you know, tax exemption, and I hope I said that right.
501c3, yeah.
But yeah, and so they want to do that, but it's hard to, you know. Let me tell you what's hurting people is denominations. God, when he came to this earth, didn't have a denomination. Religion is an idea. Religion will get you. My grandmother used to tell me when I was a kid that denominations was going to send more people to hell than the demons. And so God is the God of the Bible. He's not Pentecostal. He's not Catholic. None of that. You understand what I'm saying?
Agreed.
So you got to be at a place in your life. You need to, if you go to church, there's nothing wrong with fellowship and with other people in church. But when I go to church, I find there's jealousy and strife eventually in most of them. And I'm not saying that about all of them. I'm just saying the ones that I've visited have had that. I find it better to get with a group of people that are like-minded like you and study the Bible. My mother and my aunt go to a thing called BSF, Bible study family, and they are no denomination, and they're worldwide, and they all study the Bible together without denomination, and they only go by the King James Version, and it's a degree, and my mom and my aunt have been doing this for years to get a degree in it. So that there's no bias in it because there is no denomination, and that is how you need to find out the truth.
What do you say to those that say the King James Version is all messed up, and and Paul's writings in there's all messed up and all this kind of thing?
Well, I don't agree. I think the King James Version is the only version that we can read because, number one, I can't read Aramaic or Hebrew or Greek, and until I can't see the original Bible. So that right there is, to me, in my eyes, is the most truthful of all of them. I know that the American Standard Version and all these, the new Illuminati version is what I call it, the NIV, has whole chapters taken out of Acts and different books, whole entire chapters. And the Bible at the very end clearly warns anybody that adds to this book or takes away from it is in big trouble. So I think that the King James Version, not the new King James, the original King James Version is the best one. And in the BSF, that's the only one that they use. So
Sherry Shriner seems to be a Paul hater. Do you agree with her?
A what hater?
A Paul hater?
No, I don't agree with her.
Okay.
I would be real careful if I were her.
Oh, she might blast you with the organ. Hey, here's a question.
I know, listen, I don't hate Sherry Shriner at all, but I don't like the fact that she's telling people that I came out and tried to put a hit on her. Brother, if I come out, I don't try to put a hit on you.
You just do it.
When I was in the military, I tried to put a hit on you. You either got it or I didn't go. So I did not try to kill Sherry Shriner, as she's been claiming to people on there all over Facebook and stuff. I don't know where she got that from. But I did not try to kill Sherry Shriner because I wouldn't have tried. It would have been done.
If you put a target out in a field, how many yards could you put it out there and still hit the bullseye?
The furthest I ever hit one was 2,011 yards. I hit a clay pigeon that was on embankment. But now, the guy that they made that movie about, Legend, he hit a target, a guy in the head, did a headshot at 2,021 yards. So at that distance right there, the scope doesn't come into play anymore. You have to use holdover and windage, just guessing. So there's some skill. There's a lot of skill in it, but there's a lot of luck too, at that distance. So me hitting a target at that far, and I hit a person at 2,009 yards once. So that was the furthest, and that was just a luck shot. I mean, when it gets out to that distance right there, your spotter just says, just take the shot because the bullet's below the sound barrier and they can't even hear the crack. They don't even know where it came from.
How long?
If you miss, they don't even.
How long was that shot that the American sniper made?
2,021 yards.
And you can do the same thing?
No, I did 2011, hit a man at 2009, but it was pure luck, and I can't say I was like him because he was under incredible pressure, and I'm not going to raise myself up against a brother that was a much better soldier than I'll ever be. He was under a tremendous amount of pressure when he made that shot. He was being fired at, and mortars were going off all around him, and he still was able to take that shot. I probably couldn't have done it from shaking.
All right, we have a few more questions for you, and we'll wrap this thing up. Here's one for you. It says, of the alien hordes, what alien race is actually on our side?
I don't know of any.
None of them.
Now, there's people out there, they do, but I don't know of any that are on our side.
I wouldn't trust any of them.
They claim they'll tell you they are, but when I was down underground, what I found that was real consistent about them is that they are inconsistent. They contradict what they say from one day to the next. One day they're from here, and they got here like this. Next day, we got here like that, and we're from over there. So they don't never, their story never stays the same. So I concluded they're all liars.
Do you know any elected official who is a reptilian shapeshifter?
Pretty much all of them. There's some, and you know, like I say, just like the CIA and NSA and stuff, there are really good guys in there. Mm-hmm. There's good people in there that really are trying to do the right thing. And when they see things good, when they finally figure out what I did, they walk away. I know a lot of people that did. So for me to group everybody together would be like grouping all the Muslims together when I know that there's some Muslims that aren't like that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Grouping them all up and saying they're all bad, let's just kill them all. So there's a lot of reptilians. The ones that are in the maximum control are the ones that are controlled by extraterrestrials or are extraterrestrials themselves.
There's a story out on the internet. A man claimed, I guess he was walking in the desert and he tripped in a hole, banged his head, and some entity from another dimension supposedly got him and took him into another dimension. Somehow they started talking about music, and they said, and he told him that, well, the Beatles are over here, and they never did disband in our dimension. And he supposedly gave him a 10-track tape of their records made in the other universe. Have you heard of that story?
No, I've never heard of that story, but I mean, I'm not going to say that it didn't happen because, listen, these things will tell you anything you want to hear. I'm telling you, it took me a long time to figure out. And our commanding officer, number one, when I went down there, I worked for a private contractor in security, which was fired by the Army, and there was about in the teens of us that they kept, and says, we'll pay you if you'll stay, and gave us our rank back of what we were when we were in the Army. And so when I talked to the commanders down there, they told me to be careful when they talk to you because you're not going to get the whole truth. And I analyze it like this. If you have a truckload of salt, a whole truckload, and somebody takes and puts an eye drop, maybe 4 or 5 drops of cyanide in it and stirs it up, who's going to take the first teaspoon out of that dump truck? Nobody. Because them 4 or 5 drops have contaminated all of it. Mm-hmm. And so that's the way I look at a lie. When they tell a lie, they've contaminated the whole story of everything that they told you they were. So they tell you one day that they're this, and then the next day you don't know if they're that because they could be shapeshifted in another thing. But if you ask them, oh, that's not what I meant. What I really meant was this, and we came from this star system, and we traveled many light years in animated suspension. And then the next day it's like, no, we were here on the Earth all the time. You see what I'm saying? The same one.
Yeah.
So after a while, you hear a story from the same one, and they all change. None of them remain constant. They contradict their own selves. They can call themselves God, but when they start talking about God, the real God, they call him master of universal law.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So they can't even talk about real God because they know that's their end.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we got this question coming in for you. Greg says, the portal in the Gulf of Aden, is that under reptilian control?
Yeah, they're all under reptilian control. The reptilian, other than the fallen angels that are trapped in the abyss at Saturn, from what I understand, are the highest of intelligence. The people of the CERN Collider say when they contact the other side that they were very, very intelligent, much more intelligent than us. So, yeah, for right now, the reptilians control everything, but when the fallen angels come, they're the hierarchy of all of them.
As far as the political class goes, the political leaders of this country and perhaps the world, are the reptilians killing them and cloning their body, or are they possessing their body and not killing them?
Both. They're doing both. I mean, Queen Elizabeth is claimed to be, well, I told you this before when me and you first met, claims that she's 750 years old. And when you look at pictures of her, there is not much of a change. You know what I'm saying? I believe maybe she gets reborn, and it's not, and when I say that, I don't mean that it's reincarnation. I'm just saying when the new queen is born, the names always stay the same. And I think maybe the spirit of the old one possesses the new one. So I think what they were saying was the spirit of her is 750 years old. So, yeah, they possess the body, and in some, and some of them they're there in pure form, and the others are scared of them.
Now, Greg, how do we know that you haven't been taken over and cloned by Reptilian?
Well, because I have the protection of the Holy Spirit in me, and that's what I believe. That's my belief. I don't believe that it's. I can't say that it's impossible, because you have to be so prayed up all the time to make sure that it doesn't happen. But if you believe, in my belief, I believe that if you're protected by the Holy Spirit, that it's an impossibility for them to possess you, but they can oppress you. They can make you depressed, and they can lie to you, and you could believe a lie, even though you have the Holy Spirit. But studying of the Word of God keeps that lie from materializing in your soul.
If a lie had materialized, can it be dematerialized?
Absolutely. There's a lot of people in the occult that were Satan worshipers that are Christians now. Probably better Christians than anybody, because they know both sides of the story. So, yeah, the lie that they'll tell you is that you can't be. The demons will lie to you and tell you, or the aliens, that you can't be redeemed, when that's a lie.
What if I told the demons they're a bunch of damn losers?
They are. They've already lost. They lost the war when Christ died, and that's just my belief. Others don't believe that, and I'm okay with that. And I'm friends with people that aren't believers, but that's what I believe, and I'm not afraid to admit what I believe, and I'm not ashamed of it.
Greg, is it possible when you hear an exorcist or a preacher, maybe a priest, when he's not molesting a kid, if they say to a demon, I bind you with cords of light and I cast you into utter darkness and chains, do they have the power, and does that really happen?
Yes, they do have the power. And people say, well, what do you mean they have the power if they're not right, and they go through Mary instead of Jesus? Well, I'll tell you why, because in the New Testament, the disciples went and tried to cast out a demon, and it beat them up and sent them home naked. But they were upset and went to Jesus and said, we went and cast them out and tried to cast them out in your name. You sent us home naked. But there was people out there that were sorcerers using your name, and they were casting out demons. It's because Jesus' name is sufficient enough. And he told the disciples, he goes, well, that's because this kind only comes out by fasting and prayer. So there's some of them that are more difficult than others. So that's why I was telling you that there's a chain of command. There's a higher ranking all the way up to the fallen angels. And some are, Lucifer himself, I don't think you're going to be able to pull the bull in his eyes. And I would hate to think that Lucifer himself came after me, because I know I'm not prayed up enough to ever take him on, probably.
Why do you think?
Not that I would go to hell, but I'd get destroyed.
Okay. Why do you think Jesus sent the demons into the pigs? I mean, and then they go running off the side of the cliff. Wouldn't that mean that the pigs would die and the demons would just go floating out and possess something else? Why didn't, I mean, I'm not speaking for Jesus, not saying it's a bad move or anything, but what is the backstory on that?
The backstory on it, number one, I told you the very first interview you asked me where they come from, and I said they lived in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, the backstory about that is when the pigs ran off, the people were more concerned about the pigs than they were knowing that God just performed a miracle, and they asked him to leave and God was showing the disciples where the people's priority was. They were mourning more over the loss of their pigs than they were the man in the tombs that got straight.
Well, I think I just went to church.
Well, that's the way I see it.
Okay. All right. Here's another question. This come out of the live chat from Squirrel. It says, has there been weaponized aerosol rabies?
Yes, I just told on the Euphoria Chronicles today that I spoke with somebody that told me that they were using the same thing in some aerosols as they were using in chemtrails.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a friend that's sending me pictures of the skies over California.
Mm-hmm.
I have never, ever in my life seen a place that has been sprayed so much with chemtrails. Never have I ever seen anything like it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks like there's enough chemtrails up there where it actually looks like a thunderstorms. You know, I mean, that's how much there is there. But they use it in aerosols too. And I had talked to a retired Air Force pilot
mm-hmm.
who told me that they were using commercial planes to spray an aerosol. And he didn't say rabies, but he said they were using minute amounts of unweaponized anthrax in the air
mm-hmm.
to create a resistibility to it. Now, I don't believe that because he said the sinister part of it is that they can spray the trigger agent in the air behind it years later that weaponizes what's already sitting still in your body mm-hmm. and activate the anthrax.
Won't that spray, those chemtrail sprays, hit the same people that are putting it on the planes?
No, because see, here's the thing about the chemtrails. When they're not using holograms, they use holograms, you see, to spray them, and all they are is orbs. They're UFOs, they're orbs. But the planes that do it, they can't send a bioagent on you. It has to be a chemical agent because they mix it in the fuel, and it burns.
Mm-hmm.
And a chemical agent some of them can be burnt and destroyed. But some of them, when they're burnt, that doesn't destroy it. And when it comes out of a hot gas and hits the cold air, it turns into a steam. Well, normally, if you can see the chemtrail over you, it's not for you. It's got to drift so far before it falls. Mm-hmm. So it's the ones that you can't see over you that are drift. In other words, some that are 200 or 300 miles up in the air, 200 miles away from you, that are sprayed, that are drifting your way. So they have different ways of delivering it, mm-hmm. But they use chemical agents inside of there, but not bioagents. Mm-hmm. Not that I know of, not according to this pilot.
That is interesting because as I look up and I see the chemtrails, you're right. They're not going to drop straight down. No,
they drift. So you got to, there's calculations that you can use, and I don't have time to go in, and I might be able to post it for you, but I know how to calculate wind drift from bullets, and mm-hmm. it's the same calculation that you use on that, and all you have to do is find the atomic weight of whatever chemical it is, mm-hmm. and when it's in the jet stream, it's going to follow the jet stream, but eventually it's going to get trapped on a high pressure, and it goes around, and once it goes around the high pressure, it starts to drop. And then a low pressure comes around and lifts it up and swirls it into the atmosphere, and everybody gets it. Mm-hmm. That's how it works.
Greg, have you actually casted out a demon?
Yes, I have. I went to a church one time when I was going to churches that really believed in casting out demons, and I'd seen some pretty convincing things and did it myself. And all I know is that I only did it once, and unless I was fasting and praying, I wouldn't attempt it. Unless you're face to face with one instantaneously and you have no choice, then I think that God steps in with you on it. Mm-hmm. But other than that, you need to be really wary about just confronting a demon. Sometimes it's better to, if it's taking a person or a child down or something, you got to do something about it. And I have to hand it to the Catholic Church as far as this goes. They do believe in demons and casting out of demons, where a lot of churches don't even preach it.
Right.
You don't even hear about it.
Right. And why is that?
It's a subject that's really tough, is why, because they don't understand it when they should, and they don't understand it. And most churches, rather than seek for the truth, if they don't understand it, they just don't talk about it. Mm-hmm. And therefore, people get destroyed because of it.
Hmm. If you was to go into a church like that, would you stand up and say this is a bunch of crap?
A church that didn't preach it?
Yeah.
No. I wouldn't one thing I won't do is cause dissension between people. Mm-hmm. That's not of God either. Mm-hmm. They'll find out soon enough. Especially the way the world is now and the things that are happening, everybody's fixing to find out soon enough the truth. Mm.
Yeah, you said earlier that you won't talk about timetables, but what within a period of time, what is the next thing that we're going to see? Are we going to see more events like the Paris events on a larger scale, perhaps here in the United States? Is it just kind of escalate like that?
No, absolutely, you're going to see it on a larger scale. What we've seen with 9/11 and what happened in Paris is just a very size of a mustard grain of what's going to come. Mm-hmm. And when it comes, it's going to be all-out war. But it's going to be a war against the people. It's going to be war against us. The militarization of the police. And I don't knock cops because there's some that are there for the right reasons, and I've seen all these films of cops killing people, and some were in their rights and some weren't. But I just believe everybody's scared to death and trigger happy. And I believe that the rate of killing hasn't risen. Mm-hmm. It's always probably been that way per capita. It's just that they're picking now to televise it and sensationalize it so that they can take away our guns.
There's a lot of talk between the presidential candidates as to how many Syrian refugees the United States should take. What number would you think is a good number, if any?
0 right now, because we have no way. See, radical Islam is an idea. It's not a religion. It's an idea. You can't fight an idea, and you can't tell who's got the same idea. With religion, it's a religion. That's the danger of religion. Instead of spirituality and knowing God, it's a religion, so it has a format to it. Unlike God, the God that I worship says, what's good for one person is not good, might not be good for another. So don't judge a man for what he eats or what he drinks. Mm-hmm. Well, these religions have rules and laws and traditions to judge people. If you're an infidel, kill them, and blah, blah, blah. And, they're not the only dangerous religion. There's other dangerous religions out mm-hmm. there. But it's the format of it being an idea. So how do you fight an idea? Because I have ideas and you have ideas, but I don't know what yours are and what mine are. But when you talk to somebody that's spiritual, you know what their idea is because it's the same as yours. So how can you tell which one has the idea that Islam needs to be extreme and radical and which Muslims don't? There is no way of telling, not even with the children. But with that said, I think that we need to help the children in some of the women. We just can't stand by and watch children be killed either. So, but how do you do it?
Well, but
Nobody's
we have.
come up with good. You know why? Because it's an idea, and nobody has come up with a good idea. You can't fight an idea.
Okay, so you're saying based on that, you can't tell who has that idea or not. So you're saying because it could be a Trojan horse in the hordes of them coming over, that the border should be sealed, and that none of those migrants or however the refugees or whatever the current label is should come over here.
Right. But I believe that children are impressionable. They can be reprogrammed. And we need to help the children. But you know what Donald Trump is really right about? They don't want to come here or go somewhere else. They want to go home. So what we need to do is find out a radical and a very hard, without pity solution of snuffing the extremists off the face of the earth, which is an idea. How do you do it? And then send them home.
Well,
but
you have to quit.
We've let it go so long that there is no way to snuff this idea out.
Well, you can't run them through the justice system. You know, Obama keeps talking about we will bring justice to these folks. He's always calling them folks. You know, whatever justice is, you know, we're going to arrest you and take you to court. That's not going to happen. You know, they need to have another set of rules for terrorists.
We need to. Here's the only way it's going to happen, and this comes a moral dilemma. The only way that we're going to get rid of it is total bombing every square inch of Syria. Now, if you do that, you're going to take the innocent and the children with it. So you can't do that, but you can't go in there and arrest them because that's not going to solve anything. Precision airstrikes aren't solving anything. The only way to get rid of it is to snuff it completely out. And when you do that, you hit a moral dilemma, and nobody knows what to do because it's an idea. An idea has moral dilemmas. The truth doesn't have moral dilemmas. It only has one way. So
Well said.
there is no answer to it.
That is well said. So could that be as in the New Testament where it said God will put in his sickle and he'll separate the wheat from the chaff? Is that just the chaff that we have to deal with?
That's the chaff we're dealing with, but he's also talking about the reptilian seed line of Cain. See, Cain came from a serpent seed line. And you know, remember when they asked, the disciples asked Jesus about the devil, and he said he was a murderer from the beginning. Who was the first murderer in the beginning?
Cain.
Cain. So the seed line of Cain is still on this earth, and he is the murderer from the beginning. So that's why, God, you can't get to heaven by your works, but you can judge people by their works. And so you're able to see the reptilian seed line. That's why the reptilian seed line is a real thing. It's not a mythical, theological thing. It's a real, tangible thing, is the seed line of Cain. It's a reptilian seed line. It's a serpent seed line. And that seed line is on the earth just like man's seed line. And in the beginning, God said, I will put enmity. He would separate her seed against your seed. So the devil has a seed line on this earth, the reptilians.
Some places in Europe, there are mass demonstrations against even the Paris bombings, but those are demonstrations. What are they really saying? You know, we object. I mean, and do terrorists say, "Oh, look, there's people in the streets saying they don't like that anymore"? I mean, how does it even do anything to stop terrorism when they do that? Or if they light candles, we're going to light candles and have a prayer vigil. How does that stop terrorism in any way, shape, or form?
It doesn't, and we're not going to be able to stop terrorism. We could have stopped terrorism and put a lid on it at least in the very beginning during World War II. because this isn't the only time that Islam's rose up. They did it. If you've ever seen that movie, Kingdom of Heaven, that's a true story about Al-Sadin. He was a Muslim that escorted the Christians to their lands, and that's a true story. Now, he was a Muslim that kept his word, and he didn't. When they surrendered Jerusalem, he did take the Christians to their land and didn't harm a hair in their head. He kept his word. But they nonetheless rose up against the Christians and crushed them out of Jerusalem so that they could possess it. So this isn't the first time. And then there's been other in history, if you read history, time and time again, Islam has rose up and destroyed. So, but they've always kept a lid on it. The people knew what they were, and like I say, they weren't all the same. Not all Muslims are the same, just like not all Christians are the same. And the ones that are extreme were never dealt with. And what we did was, number one, during Iraq War, is they didn't find weapons of mass destruction. Now we did free people from a tyrant. But when he was there, if we would have never went in Iraq, we would never be in this problem that we're in now.
Exactly.
If we would have just left it alone.
There was a time.
Saddam Hussein was a tyrant, but he had a lid on it.
There was a time.
He kept the lid on.
There was a time when ISIS was in a single file march in Iraq. They could have got him right then. And Obama announced when and where he would bomb them. He said, in 2 weeks, we're going to go to this one city and we're going to bomb them. Okay, so they didn't even go to that city. He basically announced what the military plans were. But there was a time that we could have took them out and stopped this. But it seems to me that somebody wanted them to take over the land. They created a vacuum of power, and that created ISIS because we had weapons sitting all around. We had weapons and money sitting everywhere around there. And so all it had taken some nutcases to pick them up.
That's because there's money in war. The weapons companies and power. Without war, the economy would collapse because you've got weapons dealers, gunpowder dealers, dealers that make the brass, dealers that make the bullets, dealers that make the guns. That's where it comes from. There is power and money during war. They want a certain amount of war, and so they went ahead and kept it that way for years. Since Vietnam, we've always popped in and out of war to make sure that everybody got paid. Well, now what we've done is we've pulled the cork out of something we can't put it back in, and it's run rampant. And so the guns are coming from somewhere, so ISIS gets the guns by taking them from others. And then there's other companies that fund both sides. They don't care. They don't have no human empathy. They don't care about people. So it's not as bad. They're worse than ISIS because they're rich and powerful, and they fund the good guys and they sell guns to the bad guys. That's why you see Toyota sells cars to us and they sell cars to them.
As long as they sell to somebody. All right, a couple more questions and we'll come to the conclusion here. One, have you seen an uptick in demonic activity?
Yes. I mean, for crying out loud, on the cable channel, they have a murder channel on there now, several murder channels that ID Discovery Channel. And they can go on for 1,000 years and never tell the same story twice from all the murders. And they just had one the other day with Lisa Ling over in LA County, and 40,000 cadavers a year go into the coroner's office. That's like 30 or 40 a day. So the murder's gone up, the demonic activity's gone up, and to be honest with you, on the crime level, I think it's been the same per capita, in my belief. It's just they're sensationalizing it so that they can give you a reason to say, look, this is all because of guns, and this is all because the government isn't taking care of it. And the government, the blue bloods, the reptilian government that we have, and it's in its own nature. like I said in the beginning, we weren't born with fangs and claws like animals were to kill one another to eat. But they were. This is seed line of Cain. It's the reptilian agenda and the Illuminati and all those other numbskulls that are causing us to see things that always were there to start with, only sensationalizing it and scaring people into saying, like Hitler did, you give us your rights, give up your rights, and we'll let you keep your lifestyle. And the homosexual agenda is part of that, to show you that you can keep your lifestyle. You just have to give up a few rights.
And furthermore, on that question there, I saw come through our question fast blast here anyway. Is Michelle a man? Because she always seems to be scratching some sort of package sticking out of her dress.
I don't know about that. I think she's a woman, but...
She always seems to have an itch down there, so nobody knows. All right, so that's on that there. All right, here's a question for you. It says, is there a replacement program for time-space abductions, otherwise known as drop-ins?
Yes. The CERN collider is and not only the only collider. I'm wanting to learn more about the one in Texas, but the one CERN is the one I'm concerned with. I should start something called Concerned. But anyway, the CERN collider has that very objective. See, what I've seen down under there, like I told you, they couldn't hold the porthole open, only for seconds, because the plasma wave was so hot. That plasma wave, I was told, was almost 200,000 degrees, and it burned into that screen and opened up a porthole, but they could only hold it open for a few seconds, otherwise it would incinerate the entire room. And so what the CERN collider is being able to open up the porthole and hold it open for months if need be.
Is that where the drop-ins come in?
The fallen angels and all this other stuff, the entities that they've already made contact with.
Does that always have to be running? The CERN collider have to be running in some aspect to keep it open, or once it's open, they shut it down and it stays open?
No, it has to run. It has to be running.
So is it creating some sort of wave? What is really going on? Are there really particles going around, or is there some wave going in there?
Let me give you an example of the energy wave. Okay, when 9/11 happened, according to Nancy Patch, I didn't know that there was a hurricane, but there was a hurricane off the coast of New York. And they have a collider in New York, and it was running during this hurricane. And while it was running, the hurricane started coming towards the States. So they turned it off, and when they turn it off, it creates an energy pulse, okay? Well, when they turned it off, the hurricane started going back out towards the ocean, but at the same time that they turned it off, the buildings during 9/11 fell at the point of turnoff. So an energy wave comes from it. It pulses when it's winding down. And now, he said he can't definitively say that's what it was, but also the CERN collider during the Swiss Alpha accident we just had, where they said the guy committed suicide and killed other people in the Swiss Alps with the airplane, was only 100 miles from the CERN collider while it was running at that time, and they shut it off. And there was other airplanes in that area that were flying that it didn't affect. So, because they know how to direct the energy to a specific point with the CERN collider. And it's just ironic that plane was flying within 100 miles of it when it was running, and an energy pulse came from it, and that plane went down.
That didn't have anything.
I know
that didn't have anything to do with the Russian plane going down, did it?
Not that I know of. Not that I know of. There hasn't been no talk about it. It was just this specific airplane. And so the story was that he committed suicide and all this other stuff. Well, we don't have definitive proof of it, but it sure is kind of coincidental that thing was running, and they do know how to focus the energy from it on specific things. And listen, it doesn't just affect the things here on Earth. It actually affects the gravitational and the radiation belts around the Earth. It actually affects space. It's so powerful. It affects space. So when they rip the fabric of time and space, it causes chaos in the heavenlies around us.
Is that
causes all kinds of chaos?
Is that how U.S. deep space interplanetary defense system spacecraft get off the planet and get through the Van Allen radiation belt because they're firing up the CERN collider and it's putting a hole in the Van Allen radiation belt?
Yeah, I would say that's probably pretty correct. I mean, like I say, I'm not a physicist. I'm only going on what I heard. Okay, mm-hmm. So, but what really got me was it connected the dot to what I seen in the underground base on a very small level, and it affected everything in there. And I didn't witness the bodies, but was told that when we came out of there that there was 19 suicides in the underground base there at that very moment that we did that. So what does it affect? It affects time and space here on this planet. It also affects the outer space, because they're able to use it to reach Saturn, for crying out loud, which they call a prison planet.
Wow. Are there humans on the prison planet?
I'm not a scientist, so I can't really tell you. I wish I could just grasp and tell you how, but you need to post. I'll get this Anthony Patch thing to you. This interview is 3 hours long. So what people need to do is, listen to an hour. They can't listen to all 3 hours,
right?
And listen to an hour of it a day, or an hour, in different spaces.
Yeah. But
you need to hear it in its entirety. Now, in the beginning, he goes way over your head about strangulates and all these different kinds of particles, because it's all done on the quantum level. Mm-hmm. And so when he's explaining it goes over your head, but when he gets into the middle and to the end, he ties it into a layman's term of what demonic activity is and what their occultic purpose is in running this thing. Mm-hmm. So it would be reasonable to say that they are all doing the same thing. It's just this one has the most power and the biggest budget.
All right, you get that to me, Colonel, and then also get me that classified information, and I'll release whatever I can, and any music that you want to send to as well.
Okay, I appreciate it.
All right.
And I'll get that out to you.
Okay, Greg, we are just right here at the end. Anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this thing up?
Yeah, I want to give a holler out to a friend of mine, Karma Wilton, I think it is, in New Zealand. She's a good person I talked to on Facebook. And I also want to say that in the James Borg and Donald Potts at the Euphoria Chronicles, everybody needs to go check out this closed group. It's capital UFO, small RIA, and all capital letters and Chronicles. And Daniel, you ought to join it. I'm on there every day. Okay. And so I don't post a lot, but when I post something, it's critical. And the James Borg and all of them are really, these guys are really awake to what the truth is. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So there's a lot of good information on there, and I urge everybody that's listening that they should go to that Facebook page and join the group. And if they're really serious and want to know the truth and are awake and have something that they might be able to share. Mm-hmm.
Somehow I get signed up for all kinds of groups, so I'll look into that. All right.
This one here is a little different. This is the only one right now that I belong to.
All right, it's the only one you suggest, so then I'll take that to heart on there. All right, Greg Renchick, we appreciate you coming on the Edge television broadcast. Now, can we have you back on again?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll do that, Greg. And I appreciate you spending some extra time with us this evening.
Okay, brother.
All right.
We'll see you.
All right, good evening.
Bye.
All right, everybody, that was Greg Renchick, and we're talking about the CERN Collider and various other things. If you missed any of this exciting broadcast, we'll begin replay in our main player here just shortly. We had some video difficulties in the beginning, and so we ran the show extra long just to make up for that. Next week, we're going to have Jim Harold talking about paranormal entities, and we did discuss a lot of paranormal activity and entities in general tonight with Greg, so be sure to re-listen to this program. We'll upload it to our YouTube channel and put it in our TuneIn Radio queue, where you can listen to this show on any platform, any device, like say your phone, whatever. That's TuneIn Radio, our channel over there. Well, this has been Daniel Ott for The Edge. Thank you, everyone, for your great questions and for the patience in the beginning of the technical difficulties. We're going to see you next week. Daniel Ott for The Edge. Bye-bye.